Throughout all of history, humanity has always sought improvements and advancement, from chiseled stone tools to sharpened steel, from steam power to nuclear power. Humanity has always found ways to improve itself and its technologies. These technologies have led to countless breakthroughs in human advancement, pushing the limits of what our species is capable of. We have produced a plethora of machines that aid in our day-to-day life. We could travel faster than any living thing on the planet using vehicles. We can instantly find the answers to almost any question we may have with just a few taps of a screen that we keep in our pockets. We have machines capable of lifting objects hundreds of times heavier than anything our bodies could dream of lifting. But imagine if you could combine these types of enhancements into one vessel. Merge it with your own body, replace your meager flesh with a powerful new upgrade, one capable of all the abilities I've mentioned before and more. This new vessel for yourself wouldn't just grant those powers, but it would solve weaknesses like disease and age, strip away the problems that burden our human bodies. It's a tempting and intriguing goal to pursue, a goal that humanity seems to be inching closer to every day. As British biologist and philosopher Julian Huxley stated in his 1957 paper, Transhumanism, quote, "The human species can, if it wishes, transcend itself, not just sporadically, an individual here in one way, an individual there in another way, but in its entirety, as humanity." I believe Huxley is correct in his thinking, and that humanity not only wishes to, but can transcend itself one day. Merging ourselves with machines would grant us immense upgrades to our bodies and minds, thrusting humanity into the next stage of its evolution. It's not hard to imagine what humanity might look like if it were to achieve this goal, as countless media explore this very concept. Stories like Ghost in the Shell, Robocop, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and more all explore the possible outcomes and themes that come with this idea of a hyper-advanced world where humans and machines have begun to merge. Even Mortal Kombat, my favorite fighting game franchise and the subject of today's video, has taken a shot at this concept and provided its own chilling take on these ideas, with one of the darkest and most unsettling plot lines in the franchise: the Cyber Initiative. Before we dive into the Cyber Initiative, it's important that we understand the concept of transhumanism. Transhumanism is a word coined in 1957 by British biologist and philosopher Julian Huxley. Transhumanism is defined as the belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. It's the idea that as technology grows, humanity will be able to use it to augment our own physical and mental capabilities, transcending ourselves through technology to become something more than human, hence transhumanism. This theme has been explored in a wide array of films and media since the concept began gaining traction. Transhumanism carries many thought-provoking themes to explore, often asking what it means to be human, exploring how some AI technologies may begin to think and act towards their human creators, or asking if we even should merge ourselves with technology, showcasing the many risks that come with such a fundamental change to humanity. Mortal Kombat attempts to explore some of these themes as well through the Lin Kuei's Cyber Initiative. The Cyber Initiative is a Lin Kuei program enacted by Sector and his father, who, at the time of the Cyber Initiative's inception, was the Lin Kuei Grand Master, who to my knowledge and research is unnamed. The goal of the program was to empower the clan and make them the dominant force in both Earthrealm and Outworld through cybernetic enhancements. The Lin Kuei found a way to completely replace the human body with the cybernetic one that retains both the mind and soul of any member who undergoes the cyberization process. This process would begin with two of the Lin Kuei's most prominent members at the time, Sector and Cyrax. These new cybernetic bodies would grant each member numerous physical and mental upgrades, including enhanced strength, durability, reflexes, intelligence, computational capabilities, and more. These powers would also tend to complement the preferred fighting styles of each prominent member of the Lin Kuei, with Cyrax and Sector having their preferred weapons and tools built into their cyber bodies, and later Kuai Liang would retain his cryomancy. However, it's unclear as to why this is the case. Mortal Kombat never gives reason for this, and I'm inclined to believe one of or a mix of two possibilities. Either the cyberbody was created with the likeness and power set of the member in mind before their transfer into it, or their likeness and power sets transferred as a result of the members retaining their individual souls within their new body. Regardless, this seems to only happen with prominent Lin Kuei members, but it is something to think about. These enhancements would turn out to be very effective, with Kuai Liang primarily showcasing how these cybernetic enhancements can elevate one's capabilities. Before Kuai Liang's cyberization, he would have encounters with Ermac, Reptile, and Scorpion, defeating all three and showcasing his skills as a Lin Kuei warrior. Though these wins are impressive and showcase Kuai Liang's skills, they aren't nearly as impressive as his fights post-cyberization. Once he became Cyber Sub-Zero, nearly all of his skills would be enhanced, and he would showcase them in dramatic fashion. He would go on to defeat Sector, Ermac again, and his newly enhanced and revived brother Bihan, now Noob Saibot. Those fights are certainly even more impressive than Kuai Liang's previous ones, as both Sector and Bihan have been enhanced either through cybernetics or sorcery. However, they are far from the most impressive of Kuai Liang's wins. Kuai Liang would confront Kano, Kintaro, and Goro during his undercover mission to stop Shao Kahn's plans to merge Earthrealm and Outworld. During this, he would effortlessly freeze Kano and fight both Shokan warriors simultaneously. Shokans alone are insanely difficult for any regular Earthrealmer to defeat, and Goro specifically isn't just any Shokan. Prince Goro is the prince of the Shokan people. He is the strongest and most successful warrior in Shokan history. He has been stated to single-handedly crush rebellions and conquer provinces. He is also credited with 9 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournament victories, which translates to 500 years straight, undefeated in combat, only being bested by Liu Kang in the 10th tournament. Liu Kang is easily regarded as Earthrealm's strongest warrior, having trained since his youth with plenty of guidance from Lord Raiden, a god. So in my eyes, Kuai Liang could only ever dream of this victory with his human body. It is only because of his cybernetic enhancements that he managed to beat both Kintaro and Goro simultaneously in a 2v1. This is by far the best showcase of the Cyber Initiative's power, proving that each warrior in the Lin Kuei can dramatically increase their effectiveness as assassins once they are cyberized. Additionally, Sector displayed his own feats of strength and power between the events of Mortal Kombat 9 and Mortal Kombat X, during which he overthrew his father, killed him, and became the new Lin Kuei Grand Master. After Mortal Kombat 9, Sector decided that his father's time as Grand Master had come to a close. He would rush the Grand Master's chamber and kill any human Lin Kuei guards in his way. He would then fight and slay his father. It's unknown how strong Sector's father was at the time, or how the fight played out. However, given his father's status as Grand Master, it's safe to assume he wasn't just some bum and was more than capable of killing. Despite this, Sector's cybernetic enhancements proved too much to handle, and Sector would kill his father and assume the role of Lin Kuei Grand Master. Both Kuai Liang and Sector display impressive feats of strength that effectively showcase how technology can be used to elevate humanity into something greater. In the context of Mortal Kombat, this mostly translates to combat enhancements for each individual, as combat is literally at the center of how the world functions. If your realm cannot consistently produce great combatants, then your realm will likely be merged with and ruled by another. However, this showcasing of cybernetic power within Mortal Kombat's Cyber Initiative is a symbolic reflection of the kind of upgrades humanity may gain if it were to finally transcend itself through a technological merger. This technological merging point is referred to as the Singularity, and defined as a hypothetical moment in time when artificial intelligence and other technologies have become so advanced that humanity undergoes a dramatic and irreversible change. The Singularity will truly be upon us once our AI systems can begin learning and upgrading on their own. This would skyrocket technological advancements to speeds faster than we can comprehend. The technologies produced by this kind of AI wouldn't be understood by a single person on the planet until it's been sufficiently dissected by teams of engineers, and by the time they finish that, the new technologies produced would likely be infinitely better. These technologies could find solutions to issues humanity may have thought unsolvable. Diseases, cancer, famine, lost limbs, aging, and more could be solved within weeks of the singularity. These technologies could even completely replace all mundane, dangerous, and laborious jobs, allowing humanity to focus more on meaningful and fulfilling tasks, strengthen our creativity, and spend more time doing things that truly matter to us. The possibilities for advancement are truly endless. With seemingly endless benefits to what these technologies could bring, who could be opposed? Of course, that question is rhetorical. As for as many possible benefits that come with this technology, there may be just as many downsides. Downsides that Mortal Kombat and the Cyber Initiative explore quite deeply. Once Sector slew his father and seized control of the Lin Kuei, he would successfully cyberize every remaining living member of the clan. Each member would be willfully or forcibly cyberized and have not just their bodies drastically altered, but their minds as well. The merging of humans and tech within the Lin Kuei allowed for the ability to program each member's mind. Sector would install slaving protocols and suppress each member's higher brain function, effectively turning them into his obedient pawns, unable to rebel against him as he did his father. Sector had planned this from the jump, as the slaving protocols were applied to every member of the Cyber Initiative at its inception except for Sector himself. This is what allowed Sector to overthrow his father, as his father likely never assumed Sector was capable of such a heinous act of betrayal, and so Sector was likely given complete and unsupervised control over the Cyber Initiative program. Sector successfully coded the minds of every member of the Lin Kuei. For him, the Cyber Initiative was never about elevating his clan or humanity. It was about control. He controlled the tech, and so he controlled his products. He gave them all great power and cured any ailment they may have had, but he robbed them of their humanity, their free will, their honor. It is a gut-wrenchingly evil act to commit on your fellow man, and Sector never hesitated to do it. This kind of abhorrent corruption is a common concern among those who are knowledgeable about transhumanism. The fear is that the tech companies that control and own the sorts of technologies capable of being augmented into human minds will be corrupt enough to use them for corporate and systemic power and massively elevate those in high positions to authoritarian levels. This quote by C.S. Lewis from his book The Abolition of Man is great at describing this kind of dynamic. Quote, "There neither is nor can be any simple increase of power on man's side. Each new power won by man is a power over man as well. Each advance leaves him weaker as well as stronger. In each victory, besides being the general who triumphs, he is also the prisoner who follows the triumphal car. With every advancement for man, it is also an advancement over man. This is proven repeatedly in both real history and other fictional media that make commentary on it." NRS took a lot of inspiration for its cyber initiative from the 1987 film starring Peter Weller, Robocop. I'm confident that this is the case not just because of how closely the themes and plots mirror each other, but also because Robocop dropped as a playable DLC character in Mortal Kombat 11, so I'm positive NRS had their eyes on Robocop for a while. Mortal Kombat takes a lot of thematic inspiration from Robocop, especially regarding themes of power and what it means to be human, the latter of which I will discuss shortly. However, returning to the theme of power, Sector and his rise to power mirrors a lot of what Dick Jones and the OCP were doing when they created Robocop. Sector was playing both sides, Earthrealm and Outworld, and likely was planning to seize control of both later down the line so that he could obtain ultimate power, almost completely mirroring what Dick Jones was doing when he was head of the OCP and had a strong influence in both the Detroit Police Department and organized crime. Both of these scoundrels had a complete lack of empathy and were totally okay with literally programming the minds of others if it meant getting closer to their goals. Sector implemented slaving protocols, which we could see when Kuai Liang boots up during his Cyber Sub-Zero chapter in Mortal Kombat 9. We also see the suppression of higher brain function in his boot-up screen as well. This again mirrors Robocop. When Murphy is booting up and is nearly ready to begin operation, we see his 3 prime directives. In fact, these scenes are nearly identical visually, enough for me to believe it's an Easter egg meant to be a callback to the film. The corrupting nature of power is evident in both of these stories, with Sector and Dick Jones being perfect examples of what can happen when men like them are given control over tools like transhumanistic technologies. They were willing to use the bodies of others and strip away their minds, removing their identities and leaving them questioning if they are even human anymore. Kuai Liang would be fortunate enough to have his slaving protocols removed and regain his free will. Once this happens, he would explain that he remembers everything he did for Shao Kahn and the Cyber Lin Kuei during his time while enslaved. He would then go on to aid Earthrealm in the fight against Shao Kahn in Outworld. Kuai Liang would struggle with accepting his new body throughout this time. When Kuai Liang comes face to face with his brother Bihan, he would tell him that they are flawed copies of their former selves. However, Bihan disagrees, and he embraces the new power Quan Chi has given him, even if it's only used to further serve Quan Chi. It's unclear to me if Bihan is under some mind spell or something, or if he really is just corrupted by the newfound power and embraces it. Either way, Kuai Liang believes that both of them have lost their humanity in exchange for power. Though neither of them asked for it, only one would reject it, and Kuai Liang would soon rebel against Sector and the Cyber Initiative for what it has done to him and the clan. Before he does this, he would eventually face his death at the hands of Sindel during her massacre, ending his tenure in Mortal Kombat 9. Kuai Liang's story continues in the Mortal Kombat X comic, however, where he is resurrected and has his body restored by Quan Chi. Kuai would escape enslavement from Quan Chi and finally fight against Sector and the Cyber Lin Kuei. He would implant a virus into the system that links all of the Cyber Lin Kuei, and it would remove their slaving protocols. However, most of the Cyber Lin Kuei has been cloned by this point and are too far gone for the virus to have any effect on them. This brings us to Cyrax. Cyrax was never on board with the Cyber Initiative plans. In Mortal Kombat 9, he would be hesitant to continue following orders from Sector and the Grand Master due to it conflicting with his morals. He would eventually try and distance himself from the Lin Kuei after an altercation with Sector before their cyberization. However, it would be too little too late, and Cyrax would be forced into cyber slavery until this moment in the comic. Cyrax would rebel against Sector and aid Kuai Liang in the Cyber Initiative's destruction. Kuai Liang would finally slay Sector, and the cloned Cyber Lin Kuei would appoint Cyrax as their new master, as he was Sector's second in command and the last original Cyber Lin Kuei member. Cyrax would speak with Sub-Zero and ask him to restore and rebuild the Lin Kuei. He tells Kuai Liang that he is the Grand Master now, and to make it count. Cyrax would initiate the self-destruct of every member in the Cyber Initiative, including himself, and the Cyber Initiative officially comes to an end. Both Kuai Liang and Cyrax hated their time as cyborgs. Kuai Liang was fortunate enough to be restored, and even tells Cyrax that there may be a way to restore everyone. Cyrax still self-destructed regardless. I believe this is simply because Cyrax could neither continue living like this anymore, nor allow there to be any chance of the Cyber Initiative happening again. It's both noble and extremely sad. Cyrax absolutely remembers everything he has done against his will, just as Kuai once did, and I don't think Cyrax wanted to live with that. Cyrax had his humanity taken away from him. He didn't care that it made him far more powerful than before. He only wanted to keep his honor, his identity, and his humanity. He didn't have that anymore. None of the Lin Kuei did. Some could argue, however, that Cyrax did retain his identity and his honor. I mean, his mind, his personality, his memories, his thoughts, they're all still there. Cyrax is still Cyrax, but within a new shell. He remains himself under all the steel and circuits, exactly the way Kuai Liang did. They both remain true to who they are despite their new parts. So can you really say that they have lost their humanity? Sure, their human flesh is gone, but is that really what makes you human? Is that all that being human is about? To me, this is similar to the Ship of Theseus problem. Once all the boards are replaced with new ones, is it still Theseus's ship? I'd argue yes. Yes, it is. Its foundation remains, its history and memories remain with Theseus, and its identity is still intact. The soul of the ship lives on despite its new parts. The souls of Kuai Liang and Cyrax remain despite their new bodies. Their ghosts remain no matter the shell, and that's what makes them human.
There are countless ingredients that make up the human body and mind, like all the components that make up me as an individual with my own personality. Sure, I have a face and voice to distinguish myself from others, But my thoughts and memories are unique only to me, and I carry a sense of my own destiny. Each of those things are just a small part of it. I collect information to use in my own way. All of that blends to create a mixture that forms me and gives rise to my conscience. I feel confined, only free to expand myself within boundaries.
While Mortal Kombat mirrors Robocop and its themes far closer, they also attempted to explore themes of identity and humanity, which are similar to the themes explored in Ghost in the Shell, specifically the 1995 animated film. The original Robocop does this to a degree, but it's far more focused on power and corruption themes than the identity themes. Ghost in the Shell, however, is rich in a multitude of themes, but the one in particular I wanted to point out was the theme of identity. Major Motoko struggles with her own identity throughout the film, and the clip I just played is one of the best examples in the movie of her thoughts about herself. She knows she has her own thoughts, her own memories, her own personality, all of which are unique only to her and make up her consciousness. I think, therefore I am, is what's being explored here. However, she still says she feels confined, since if she ever were to retire or quit, her company that creates and owns her cyber body and her augmented brain would likely just take that away from her. So she is still restricted and confined to only do things within the boundaries of District 9. Motoko isn't even sure if her memories are hers or not. She questions if those memories could be false, implanted ones given to her by the company upon her creation. However, she is sure that she is her own person, that she just is. Again, Descartes' quote, "I think, therefore I am," in simple terms, means that the only thing you can be sure of is that you exist. If you are thinking, then you exist, and that's all you can be sure of. This transitions us into the other part of Descartes' thinking. If you can only be sure that you exist through the mental means of thinking, then the mind and body may be separable and are not conjoined or dependent on each other. If that is the case, and your soul, ghost, mind, is everything that composes you, then your body is simply a vessel for what you actually are. Later on, Major Motoko would choose to merge with the Puppet Master. Initially, she was hesitant and fearful that she may lose her sense of identity while doing this. However, with their merger, she would be able to tear down those boundaries, no longer being confined to any one body. Once these boundaries were broken, she could finally feel like her own person, without limitations. She embraced this change for the chance at something better, even if the risk was losing the only thing she was sure of. This brings me back to Cyrax and Kuai Liang. Kuai Liang embraced change. Even in his cyber body, he was ready to simply accept that despite his new form, he was still himself underneath. He was ready to use his new form to continue to help others and fix the Lin Kuei. Kuai Liang was resilient, and he fought to make things better no matter what it took from him. It was Kuai Liang's embracement of change that allowed him to continue pushing and rebuild the Lin Kuei with real honor. Kuai proved that humanity, honor, and identity reside within one's mind and soul, not their body. Unfortunately, Cyrax didn't see it this way. Even in Mortal Kombat 11, he says he can't live like this. And though I can understand Cyrax, I wish he would have stuck around to help Kuai Liang rebuild the clan, or stuck around to let Kuai Liang try and restore him, to teach him resilience and that he can keep living. He is still himself, and there is always hope. Throughout this video, we have grappled with the many outcomes of transhumanistic technologies in a world post-singularity. There are just as many negative outcomes as there are positive ones, and that leaves us with one more major question. The question that each one of the stories mentioned in this video attempts to answer. Is it worth it? Is obtaining these technologies worth the risks that may come with it? As of today, in 2025, we have various generative AI systems that can help us do great things, from stopping the spread of misinformation online with fact-check systems to successful cancer screenings that help with treatments for those afflicted. However, with those great uses for AI come bad ones, from corrupt companies using AI to try and replace the jobs of creative human minds, to criminals using AI voices to pretend to be a loved one in distress and demand ransom. So even today, we experience both sides of the coin with these technologies, and the tech is only improving. So what else does the future hold? How could we be prepared for a life post-singularity? Many experts believe we may hit the singularity in our lifetime, even as soon as the 2040s. Others are more skeptical or even doubt the possibility of a singularity at all. However, with the nature of tech's rapid evolution, it's hard to rule it out completely. Regardless, if the day does come when the stories explored in this video feel closer to fact than fiction, I hope humanity is ready to face whatever comes with it. Despite the extremely rich themes discussed in this video that lie underneath the surface of NRS's cyber initiative, I still cannot bring myself to give the writers any credit whatsoever. The plot is full of issues, the power scaling is horrendous, everything lacks follow-through, and the writers have no original ideas. I almost feel inclined to say that the slop produced by current AI models would be better than the dog shit produced by the NRS writers' room. Of course, that may not be true, but it's pretty dang close. Anyway, I would like to dive into what exactly NRS did wrong, and then I'd like to offer my own fixes and suggestions that could have made this plotline much better. Before I dive in, I recommend that you watch the video popping up on the top right corner of your screen right after this one. In it, I explore Kuai Liang's story, his involvement in the cyber initiative, and how I would have improved his story. So if you are interested, be sure to check that out when you have the chance. From the moment NRS officially kicked off the cyber initiative, their power scaling issue veered its ugly head. Our first experience with the cyber initiative was in Kuai Liang's human chapter. A fight I failed to recognize early on in this video, I intentionally left out on purpose. His first fight against a newly cyberized Cyrax, Kuai Liang would win, and best the cybernetically enhanced Lin Kuei assassin, ruining the stakes of the cyber initiative the moment it began. NRS wants us to believe that the cyber initiative enhances the Lin Kuei, making them far superior to their human forms. However, they immediately plant the seeds of doubt by having Cyrax lose his debut fight to Sub-Zero. Why? This is supposed to be your new threat's debut. It's a moment for you to show the audience that the cyber initiative does what you say it does, to make them feel like a real threat that's out to hunt down the Lin Kuei defectors who oppose the new regime. So it makes zero sense to have Cyrax lose his cyber debut. I also understand that it's a Lin Kuei affair and that the story must involve Sub-Zero at some point. But why now? Cyrax should have been shown beating other noteworthy characters that are above or on the same level as Sub-Zero before their interaction. He should have been shown cyberizing other Lin Kuei members. This would make Cyrax and subsequently the entire cyber Lin Kuei feel menacing. This would add tension and weight to Kuai's meeting with Cyrax. Even still, I think Cyrax should have beaten Kuai Liang and have been the reason for his cyberization after Kuai's fight with Scorpion. It also would have been more emotionally impactful, as Cyrax would never do this of his own volition, seeing as he rejected the idea of the cyber initiative in the first place. And it again would keep the power scaling consistent and allow for Kuai Liang's transformation into Cyber Sub-Zero, continuing the story in the exact same way but with more impact and weight. Cyrax's initial loss isn't the only power inconsistency in this plotline. In fact, both Cyrax and Sector lose every single fight they are in both Mortal Kombat 9 and the less important Mortal Kombat 11. Neither of them actually wins a 1v1 fight post-cyberization. Thus, they feel like posers who only exist to push the plot and get beaten up. This makes the entire Cyber Initiative plotline feel weightless. If its two main proponents are bums who pose no real threat, then the entire thing feels like a non-factor and that it doesn't matter. This ruins any themes it's trying to convey as well. It's trying to tell me about the risks of hyper-advanced technology and transhumanist ideals, but it doesn't depict those as problems within its own narrative. How am I supposed to feel like those are real-world problems or even care about the subtext in the first place? I explore the issues that come with inconsistent power scaling a bit deeper in my Kotal Khan video, so if you guys are interested in learning more about how it affects the story, feel free to check it out, link in the description. On the very low chance you found yourself genuinely invested in the Cyber Initiative plot, you likely found yourself extremely disappointed at the conclusion of it entering Mortal Kombat X. especially so if you didn't read or even know about the sometimes canon MKX comic that actually provides a reason for the Lin Kuei's absence in the actual Mortal Kombat story. In Mortal Kombat X, the Cyber Lin Kuei and any impact it had was just absent. Hell, Kuai Liang is restored, human, and Grandmaster of a restored Lin Kuei. This is extremely confusing for those playing the game after Mortal Kombat 9. How the hell is Kuai Liang human? Where are Cyrax, Sector, and the rest of the Cyber Lin Kuei? None of this is answered in Mortal Kombat X, and is only briefly mentioned by Kuai Liang during his flashback conversation with Hanzo at about the midpoint of the story.
After you and I were freed from Quan Chi's control, I sought out my clan. I had hoped rebellion from within would have quashed the Grandmaster's plans, but Sector had realized his father's vision. The Lin Kuei had been fully cyberized. I pledged to kill Sector and his followers, reform the Lin Kuei, and restore our honor.
I am not interested in Lin Kuei politics, Sub-Zero.
When I finally killed Sector, I discovered the Lin Kuei had not sacrificed its honor with the Cyber Initiative. We had abandoned it long before.
I've mentioned before that NRS has commitment issues, and it is prevalent here with the Cyber Initiative. Many possible intriguing plot lines that can come from the effects of the Cyber Initiative are just completely abandoned. Many of the themes I mentioned in this video are just left half-baked and have no conclusion. Cyrax never gets any closure and is literally just off-screened between games. Kuai Liang never gets an arc about humanity, identity, or fighting to restore his clan's honor, and Sector never truly gets to showcase the horrors and powers that were possible with the Cyber Initiative. Everything was just abandoned and given lazy excuses and poor reasons for their incompleteness. The moment NRS runs out of ideas for a plot, they just scrap it and move on to something else that has already been done before. This brings me to my next point. There is nothing original in nearly any of the NRS Mortal Kombat plots. All of them tend to trend chase or follow their inspired plot lines too closely. Mortal Kombat 9 was basically a slight retelling of the Midway era up until Shao's invasion. Mortal Kombat X was heavily inspired by Game of Thrones, and Mortal Kombat 11 was obviously emulating the Avengers Endgame and multiverse style that was exploding in 2018. The subplots, like the Cyber Initiative, are almost always some sort of copy and paste that has been done before. I've compared it to Robocop and its themes throughout this video, but what I haven't mentioned yet is just how closely the plots mirror each other. Obviously, there are differences, but the formula is the exact same. In Robocop, Murphy is killed and the OCP uses his body to create a cybernetic cop to be a pawn of the company. Murphy has his mind programmed and altered for the gain of a corrupt man at the top of the company that owns him. The corrupt man, Dick Jones, tries to play both sides, the Detroit Police Department and Detroit's organized crime, in pursuit of more power. The cybernetic man, Murphy, regains his memory and begins acting of his own free will. Inevitably, he rebels against the corrupt company that owns him and kills the man at the top of it all, shutting down the corruption. This is the exact same plot as NRS's Cyber Initiative. Kuai Liang is Murphy or Robocop in this instance, and Sector is Dick Jones. Sector attempts to play both Earthrealm and Outworld. He programs people to be his pawns for personal gain, and all of it for more power. Kuai Liang regains his memory, rebels against Sector and the Cyber Lin Kuei, kills Sector and shuts the entire operation down. Once NRS hits this point in their story, it's no coincidence that they just removed the entire Cyber Initiative plotline. They had no more homework to copy from, and they just turned it in incomplete. If NRS had simply committed to the plotline and come up with original ideas to allow their characters to grow naturally, they would have had something special with the Cyber Initiative. Deep themes of humanity, identity, and power, commentary on transhumanism and corruption, and a truly memorable plotline in their story that would have stuck with players for years. It's not impossible to create a Mortal Kombat game that has both a great story and great gameplay. The writer's room should be held responsible for the complete disaster that is the modern Mortal Kombat story. WB and NRS should be ashamed of what they've done to this once great franchise. I'm sick of seeing the game I love continue to be rebooted, retelling the same stories, and produce lazy, pre-cooked narratives for a quick check. I hope one day to see this franchise return to glory and retake the throne of the fighting game community. Until then, I will continue to voice my opinions and make videos that call out WB and NRS for ruining this incredible franchise. The Cyber Initiative, like most of NRS's plotlines, had the unfathomable potential to be incredible, full of rich themes, deep emotional stories, and underlying subtext with commentary on real-world issues. It's unfortunate that, like everything else NRS touches with this game, it turned out to be an incomplete and forgettable mess of a plotline with no weight to it at all. With that, we've reached the end of this video. I really appreciate you guys sticking around to the end, and I truly hope you enjoyed this one. It's a little different from my usual content and required a crap ton of more research than any other I have produced thus far. So if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Every click counts and helps the channel a ton. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I will do my best to respond to each one. Special shout out to my members on the screen now. If you guys want to support the channel even more, have your name displayed on the screen at the end of all of my video essays, and have early access to these video essays, consider becoming a member. It would be greatly appreciated. However, your view is more than enough, and there is no pressure. I love each and every one of you. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.